When we were meditating earlier, the song was coming to me. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I am. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. And the reason that I feel called to start with that is we sometimes in New Thought say things like, be careful what you say because the universe is listening. Be careful what you think, the universe is listening. I want to offer a slightly different variation of that. Be careful what you're thinking and what you're saying because you are listening. And the narrative, the ideas, the constructs, the beliefs, the BS belief system, as we explored last night, is exactly what creates reality because the universe is actually quite neutral. And I love what Dr. Sue Morter says. She says, life is difficult and a struggle until it isn't. And so what I want to be curious about with you today is that until it isn't moment. And I was listening to my own reading and I thought, did I really say there's nothing to do to become awakened? Did you all hear that? I'm like, wait a minute, there is nothing to do to become awakened? What if this is the most enlightened you will ever be? Now what? So there have been these moments in my life when I've reached this beautiful opportunity that offers me the possibility that I can call off the search and rest in the truth of who and what I've always been. That this outer search for awakening and enlightenment that shows up as a workshop or a spiritual community, please keep coming, of course, and go to the workshops. And yet there is this incredible moment where we get to understand that the truth of who and what we are, the inner vitality of who and what we are, has always been present, but it's only my own consciousness or my own conscious awareness that has prevented me from knowing absolutely that I can not only access it, but I can be it. And so there have been plenty of wise people who have said, be the love. Doesn't that sound nice? Be the love. Be the love. I'm going to be the love. And yet, I have all these ideas that I've accumulated and amassed about myself that have prevented me or seemingly prevented me from experiencing reality. So what we can see, what we can touch, what we can taste, what we have once called reality is actually the illusion, and what one might call the illusion, the invisible realm of existence, is actually reality. We come into the world as this radiant, vital. I was sitting with the word vitality. What is vital? Vitality we often think of as effervescence. We think of it as exuberant energy. We think of it as well-being, and it is all that. And it's also vital for our survival. The truth of who and what we are is what we came in as. So if we want to know God, if we want to know source, if we want to know love, if we want to know light, it's simple. Talk to a 2-year-old. Look at a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. Everything that we have been seeking in spiritual community, I'll put it in the I, everything I was seeking in spiritual community, in recovery, in therapy, in almost every conversation, everything I was seeking is actually innate in the human experience. A 2-year-old and a 3-year-old do all the things. They feel their feelings very deeply. And if we let them feel their feelings very deeply, then they go back to their natural state, which is joy. Either that stub your toe or don't get something you want, and there's an explosive energy of emotion. And if we let them just have that emotion, they naturally come back to their center, which is joy. Suddenly they're happy again. So all of that we've been searching actually is true within us. We came in that way. The other thing is true presence. I remember I used to have a Vespa when I lived in San Francisco for 30 years, and I had a Vespa, and I was on the corner of 16th and Mission, I believe, maybe 17th and Mission. Not sure why the setting is so important right now, but there I was, and there was a dad, I'm assuming a dad, it was a man with a small child on his shoulders, and our eyes connected, not the dad, the small child. And we just connected. And I remember following. And it's funny, I don't remember what this child looked like. I don't remember their gender. What I do remember is the remembrance of reality. And I remember thinking, don't turn green. Right? And that experience is available at every moment. I hear plenty of New Thought ministers say things like, well, we're not ever going to be fully enlightened. That enlightenment is a process, that one day maybe we will get there, but the truth is it's always right here and right now. And so to know that is to understand that all I need to do is remember the truth of who and what I am and be that 2-year-old. And what's required to do that? I get to lose my mind. How many people have lost their minds here? Someone shared with me earlier that they were losing their mind. Who was that? Is anyone going to admit it? One of you all said, I feel like I'm losing my mind. And I'm like, congratulations. Congratulations, because spirit, the essence of who we are, is beyond thought. And I love what Reverend Michael says. Michael says, if you want to really practice new thought, have one. Right? Because the thinking that has kept me feeling small is the thinking that prevents me in this moment, not from attaining something, but remembering something. And why is this important? This is important because in my own journey, I thought one day I will. One day our community will. I'm going to bring it into real time in the room because we're in transition, right? The reason that I've chosen to come speak here is because our beloved Reverend Joan, who may or may not be watching right now, I hope you are, Reverend Joan, we love you and appreciate you, who served for the last 7 years as the senior minister. And I actually served as the senior minister for 7 years before that, because we actually started in 2012 in San Francisco and then moved here. It's been a long journey. So whoever the next person who signs up for 7 years, whoever that is, we know it's perfect and in divine order. But here's something that I really want to invite. We also know that we can block that. Right? Because the perfection that is the unfoldment of community is happening right now. And if I have a narrative about anything around that, because the truth is, the field, as we call it, is the field of infinite potential. The universe is a field of infinite potential. And then what I call it, or what my idea about it, is what creates what we call reality. Now, quantum mechanics is starting to measure this. In other words, science is catching up to what New Thought, ageless wisdom teachings have been saying for centuries, right? And one of the fundamentals of quantum mechanics is that the observer has a profound. And if you're not sure what quantum mechanics is, first of all, anyone a quantum physicist here? Okay, well, that's good news for me, because I can tell you my interpretation of quantum physics, which is actually profoundly simple, as most things are. The observer has an effect. And so if Charlie and I are going to do an experiment and we agree that we think the outcome of this experiment is going to be this, that's what happens with there's a much higher probability of that coming into reality than if we had thought we were going to experience something else. Does everyone hear that? Do you really lean in and understand what that means? What that means is the universe is a field of infinite possibility, infinite potential, and as soon as I say something like, well, we don't really have the money to do that, we don't have the money to do that. Great. And so it is. My first spiritual teacher, one of my first spiritual teachers in the New Thought movement was Reverend Maureen Bass at Unity San Francisco back in the day. And she would say, take a look. She was from Alabama. I loved her accent. Take a look at your bank account, darling. Has it been really smaller than you want for years and years? I want you to say out loud, I'm a powerful creator. I keep creating a small bank account. Look how powerful I am. And we use money as an example, but that's not actually abundance. Abundance is not money. Prosperity isn't really money. Abundance is understanding who and what we truly are, and it's infinite. And so if I say I'm going to make $10 billion, that's a limiting thought. It might be one that might sound good, but it's still a limitation on what's possible. And what happens in community, and I'm not here to call y'all out. I'm just here to say, I know, because I haven't been here, but I've been here. We've all been here, is that we start to build something that we call a coalition. And a coalition sounds something like this. I don't know what's going to happen. We're in a lot of transition right now. I'm kind of scared. Are you kind of scared? Okay, you're not admitting to that, but okay, I'm going to go find someone who will. Are you kind of concerned about where we're at right now? And then we find our people, and our people are, yes, we're scared. Okay? And then we create that as a possibility in the field of infinite potential. And I want to be clear, I'm not in the wrongness of that. I want to say, look how powerful we are. Look how powerful we are that we can come together and have a collective idea about something, and then we see it manifest. But I want to go a little deeper because I know y'all can. The truth about reality isn't usually conscious. Now, I want to tell you what I mean by that. It's usually what's happened in the unconscious or the subconscious. And if I say, because I learned how to do affirmations when I first came to New Thought in 1988 or 1989, and I would stand in the mirror, I am abundant, I am wealthy in every way, and then I did like the class where you say, I love money and money loves me, or I am healthy and vital, I have inner radiance. But when I would say that, I would also be holding a frequency that I knew I didn't deserve it, or that I believed I didn't deserve it. Because in my own journey, I actually remember being a little kid and being effervescent. I was really good at radiating my inner vitality. As a matter of fact, I will show you a picture of me when I was 3 years old. My mom likes to tell the story that she realized I was going to be gay by the time I was 4. I show her my 3-year-old picture. What took you so long? So I had a lot of vitality in Indiana in the late 1960s, and not everyone appreciated that, right? I also grew up in a household where I had 2 parents that didn't love one another, and I know that today. I know they were in a loveless marriage. I felt that. I was in a home where dad was busy having relationships with people who weren't my mom, and my mom would stare at the ceiling and say, Tom, if you're having an affair, I don't want to know. Right? There was a lot of trauma in my family, my extended family, and the reason I share that is I had a profound experience when I was 7, and that profound experience was me closing my heart. And I actually remember it like it was yesterday, a physical sensation of my heart closing. And I've come to understand that that was BS, brilliant strategy. And that strategy did allow me to survive on a planet and in a life that felt scary. The issue, of course, is it also protected me from the love and connection I truly desired. And so it was at that moment that I made some fundamental decisions about myself. I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, and I'm not good enough. And even though a 7-year-old doesn't even have the brain, like my brain wasn't even developed, but I absorbed that, and I remember suddenly feeling small. And so I went from this effervescent boy to this scared little kid. And I walked around that way feeling terrified and afraid until I found some ways to escape from that. That's a different story for a different place. Let's just say I'm in long-term recovery, but I found some drugs and alcohol that helped me. We'll just put it that way. And it really did help me to feel effervescent again until it didn't. And then I got sober when I was 21. So at 7, I closed my heart. At 14, I discovered a way to escape from that. At 21, I got sober. And then I found New Thought. And I went about trying to change my thinking. Because I heard, thoughts in mind create after their kind. Thoughts create reality. Can I just be really transparent with you all? This is what it sounded like internally. The world is scary. Oh, don't have that thought. You're bad. Don't think that. Get rid of that thought. No thought. Go. There was a spiritual community in San Francisco in the early 90s that sure remain nameless, but you know what I'm talking about. And they wore rubber bands around their wrist. And if they had anything that they called a negative thought, maybe you were there too, you flicked it. And you would say, no, cancel. And everything was cancel, because we believed like the universe was ready for us to get us. Right? And I'm like, did you all grow up with a punishing God? Because all you're doing is changing the language and calling it New Thought, but it's the same old thought. There's something trying to punish me for my thinking. The deeper reality here is I tried to change my thought, and then at some point in my evolution, I realized that when I was 7, my brain wasn't even developed. So why do I think I can change that mind? Or change it fully? Instead, what was required was for me to understand 2 things. 1, the truth of who and what we are is infinite. Loving, source, God essence, Buddha nature, all the words we use, infinite. The light of who and what I am, the inner vitality that is vital for me to survive, the light that I am. And 2, I pretty much have to question and begin to dismantle every thought I've ever had that has prevented me from knowing that. And it required me to go back and care for the 7-year-old that grew up swimming in racism, grew up swimming in men talking about women in a derogatory way, swimming in homophobia, swimming in otherness, and care for that 7-year-old from a place of tenderness. And what was required of me is to be on the floor in the fetal position. This will show you how long ago it was, listening to Enya. Oh, right? Because there was something about her music that opened my heart. And at first it opened my heart to feeling the love, and then it opened my heart to feeling the pain. And there was a point in my life that I thought the love was what I wanted to experience and the pain was what I wanted to avoid. That is suffering. I didn't say that. Buddha said that 2,500 years ago. Clinging and aversion is what creates suffering. I want more love and I want less pain. More love and less pain. That's also called addiction. So the deeper path here is a path of reawakening the truth of who and what we are, and then questioning every idea I've ever had about myself and the world that keeps me feeling small and limited. I'll go back to Reverend Maureen Bass. She's in my heart today for some reason, but she used to teach a metaphysics class, and she would just take a whiteboard and just ask people to put dots all over it. Dots, dots, dots. Everyone would just, we all came up and made dots, and there was this big whiteboard filled with dots. And she said, and I'm going to do her accent again because it's so precious, look at all these dots. This is the universe. Infinite dots. And then she would take her marker and she would circle 4 dots. And she would say, this is my consciousness. This is what I believe I am worthy of. This is all I can see is these 4 dots, because that's the framework that I've created. And I've created that framework because at some point it helped me feel safe. At some point, as I shared on my own journey, being small protected me. 4 dots felt really comfortable. And the way we grow in consciousness, she would go on to say is, let's see if you can increase that to 5 dots. Let me see something for myself that is possible that I wasn't aware is possible. And then maybe I see 6 dots. and then maybe 7 dots. And at some point, I understand that I am one with that infinite, those infinite possibilities. That the truth is, we can have these moments we might call a peak experience. I've had several. One that was most notable was when I was in India in 2016, where I had the experience of that circle disappearing altogether. And I see some nodding, so I know some of you have experienced it. All there is was love. And I remember, I was in the Ganges on a boat, and a dog floated by. And I remember thinking, I am that, and that is me, and there's only love. And it was an experience of reality where the ego gets a really bad rap. The ego is just my personality. It's the way I've constructed what I call reality. It's the way I've survived the world. It's my BS brilliant strategies. It's my BS belief systems. It's all good, but there was a moment when it was dissolved. And of course, guess what I wanted to do? Stay there forever. I wanted to stay there forever, which of course was my ego coming in saying, stay here forever. Only know there's love. I had a client once say to me, do you really walk around the world only seeing love and connection and loving energy and kindness and openness and no judgment? Do you really walk around experiencing that? And I said, yes, I do. I often forget it though. I often forget that that's reality. And in a moment, I can wake up to that. In a moment, I can remember the truth of who and what I am. In a moment, I can remember that the spiritual essence that I am is the vitality because it's vital for my survival. And we understand now very deeply, even science, and I'm not trying to dog on science because what's interesting about spirituality and science, a lot of people think science has the answers. But that's not science. Science is being in the question, constantly being in the question. We know more now. Let's be curious about this. I wonder if we looked at it this way. I wonder what else is possible. Spirituality is the same thing, but a lot of people use science like they do religion has the answers. But spirituality is being in the quest, the question. Compassionately curious, not only about what's happening in the world, but what I'm making it mean. And I want to take about 2 minutes here, because that's about all I want to take for this little moment, is to talk about what's happening in the world. Because New Thought, ancient wisdom, or ageless wisdom teachings are really inconvenient. And I'm going to let you know why I think they're really inconvenient. Because nothing is more painful than 99% surrender. So if I say, we're all one, there's only God, what about the president? Inconvenient. You mean I have to think that or feel that about this person? No, I don't have to. I can choose to have all the judgment in the world and then I suffer. Choice. We're either unconsciously choosing or we're consciously choosing. And I want to offer something about the world. The world, there are several of us in this room, right? And we all have different experiences of what's happening right now. Someone's like, maybe I kind of like this guy. Why is he still talking? Right? We're all having a different experience. I'm thinking, I wonder how much more time I have. Oh, look, let me look at the clock. We're all in different realities, but we're in the same room. And that's exactly what's happening on the planet. And as soon as I call something horrible, what does quantum mechanics tell us I'm going to experience? Something horrible. When I move into curiosity, and here's the paradox. Because when I'm in the fight, what does that create? The fight. I want to be clear. I understand the impulse to do that. It's a very deep collective program that we've all experienced, because I think, were you all born on planet Earth? There will be a day when that's a legit question, but right now I'm assuming I'm kind of making a joke. But If we're born on planet Earth, we absorb the collective consciousness. In New Thought, we call it race consciousness, just meaning the collective consciousness. So if you're watching CNN every day, constant negative news, or if you're watching Fox, I'll have to come up with one for Fox. I haven't yet. I will do that, though. I am being inundated with only what's happening on the Earth. That's the 0.00001% of what's happening on Earth. We have collectively decided that the horrible things happening on Earth is news. And as Reverend Michael says, it's not news, it's olds. The same old story of division, of fear, of scarcity, of not enoughness, of otherness, of us and them. Yes, it's happening. But 99% of what's actually happening on the planet is love, connection, openness, family. Someone's being born. Someone's honoring someone who's passing away for the contribution they've made on planet Earth. Love is what's happening on the planet. Now, I want to be clear because I know there's at least one of you right now, because I actually had someone accuse me of spiritual bypassing on Facebook. And she went on to say, of course, she used the Reverend title. She was trying to call me out. Listen, Rev TJ, you're spiritual bypassing. And what she meant and what she said is, because I wouldn't call a person horrible, I was spiritual bypassing. Spiritual principles, as we practice them, can be inconvenient. I have the honor of, in addition to this world, I get to work in behavioral health. And one of the greatest, I don't work directly with clients anymore. I mostly train clinicians in a model I've created, which is really New Thought, bringing it to that world. One of the greatest gifts of that work is I get to work with a true diverse group of people. And I get to ask myself, do I have as much love for someone wearing a rainbow sticker as wearing a MAGA hat? And if I don't, then I have the opportunity to do some more healing. It doesn't mean that I'm in agreement or disagreement. Like a friend of mine said, yeah, my friend wouldn't go to that wedding. They don't believe in gay weddings. I'm like, it's like, I don't believe in light bulbs, but there it is shining. I mean, what are you talking about? You don't believe in gay marriage. It's happening. Like, it's true. But see, the thing is, we laugh at that, but if I read that, right? I had someone who may or may not talk to me again. It's okay. She said, well, you know, the red states, they just say, if you don't like it, leave. And I said, have you ever said that about the Bay Area? Have you ever said, if you don't like what we believe? See, we get so caught up in the belief. What do you believe? What do I believe? And when I'm in that paradigm, again, nothing wrong with that paradigm, but that automatically creates the other. When I'm in the fight, it automatically creates more fight. And here's the paradox that I said I was going to say, and now I'm going to finally say it. When I'm in the fight, I'm not useful. I'm not useful to the healing that is required. And so what if, you see, because there was one point, and I'm going to wrap up now, I promise, but there was one point at which I realized that when my button got pushed, formerly known as trigger, you triggered me, that's the new thing, you are triggering me. You're touching an unhealed wound. The unhealed wound is getting touched so that I can heal. Thank you, sender. The person who sent it, for allowing me to see where I have another, everyone heard of AVGO, another effing growth opportunity? We have an AVGO moment. Oh, I have a judgment about how you voted. I have a judgment about the food you eat. I have a judgment about whether you live in what I call a red state or a blue state. I have a judgment about whether you call yourself a Christian, a Muslim, or an atheist. And judgments are, okay, so I took this spiritual challenge with my friend John from Unity, San Francisco. We're going to go 30 days without a judgment. I have to drink a little drink of water on that. Guess how long I went? Oh my gosh, a day? You must see me in such 30 seconds. I went 30 seconds and I realized I had a judgment about doing this. Well, what's wrong with judgment? Everyone judges, that's what we do. Yes, and that judgment is what restricts and creates reality. So I had two, like I said, I believed I was unlovable, but I also believed everyone was going to like me. Those were my two beliefs. Interesting life. Everyone likes me, but no one can possibly love me. If you really knew me, you couldn't possibly love me. And then when I absolutely, actually really knew me, I realized that love is who I am. And what the world, the vitality, what's vital for the world right now is for us to be the love and be the light. So how do I do that? I look at every judgment I have, which there are plenty, and I question them. I don't eradicate judgment. I realize it for what it is. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. I have a body, but I'm not my body. I have a political affiliation, but that's not who I am. How are we doing, everyone? Right? And so what I truly want to close with is a simple truth. And I'm going to ask you just to repeat after me. I am love. I am light. I am joy. I am joy. I am joy. And so it is. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, everyone.